I was able to stack up 28,014 points for open arc probes this week in trials using a really simple route that maximized the number of probes that I could breach. I did this during an electromagnetic storm on Spaceport, but you can do this same strategy overall on other maps too. That said, you will always have to do this during an electromagnetic storm because during those storms, arc probes and arc surveyors fall out of the sky in higher volumes, giving you the best opportunity to find, breach, and search these probes en masse. In order to accomplish this, you will want to run with as bare bones equipment as possible. Adrenaline shots are great for this challenge too. I always bring 5 for the later parts of the game, but you can bring 10 to 15 and easily use them all to maximize your travel time. The process here is super simple. Once you launch into Spaceport, start to move to the central part of the map while looking out for plumes of black smoke in any direction. Plumes will end up being one of two things. Arc probes, which are the ones you're looking for this challenge, are tall, thin, and laying flat on the ground. The other smoke trails will lead you to arc couriers, which do not count for this challenge. They're shorter and more boxy, so make sure you avoid looting those. When you begin breaching an arc probe, they will emit a noise that will attract enemies until the breach is completed. If you start a breach and then stop it midway, the sound will continue to attract enemies until you complete that breach, so be aware of that as you go. You only need to search them to get your trials points, so just quickly search them to get those points and then move on to the next. Do your best not to tunnel too much onto one smoke plume you're running to. The electromagnetic storm can make it challenging to spot smoke trails if you're moving too quickly like I was here. Time is of the essence, and having to retrace your steps to get a probe you could have otherwise got on the way is a waste of time, so do your best to minimize the need to go backwards to get a probe you've overlooked. I recommend bringing a handful of zip lines or a snap hook, as you're going to find arc probes on the roofs of buildings throughout Spaceport, and the time that it takes to climb a ladder can take away from your time breaching another probe. If you do end up using ladders, don't forget you can slide back down, which will help reduce some of the time from climbing. As far as I can tell, if you see a smoke trail on a roof, it's 100% an arc probe. I've never found an arc courier on the roof, but that could just be my own special luck. So if that is true, you will absolutely be climbing ladders or using zip lines. As you move into the center of Spaceport, remember there are far more enemies roaming around than on the outer edges, so it can be really easy to get caught out in the open if you're not careful. Breaching probes in the middle of the map early round is because there are less enemies to avoid. The later it gets into the round, the more enemies are spawned in, making it next to impossible to loot some of the central probes during the late game. Try to clear out as many probes in the center area as possible early on and fan outwards as the game progresses. The biggest hurdle you're going to have to deal with is avoiding lightning strikes, which are mostly random. That said, they will routinely strike on a probe you're about to breach or actively breaching, so be ready to dodge as needed. The lightning definitely hurts and will stun you for a second or two and can make you vulnerable to other enemies in the area. Standing in place for too long will 100% create a lightning strike on you, so do your best to keep moving. As I said earlier, breaching a probe emits a noise that attracts nearby enemies, so sometimes the probe won't be worth the effort if it's near a bastion or other large arc enemy. Leave that probe be and move on to the next one. Since you are going to be attracting enemies throughout the match, I strongly recommend bringing the photoelectric cloak with you. It's a great get out of jail free card and can help you avoid wasting time eliminating enemies after breaching a probe. Don't take any fight unless it's necessary, or you can finish it quickly to move on to the next probe. Arc probes that have been breached and searched already offer you the quickest option for stacking your score, as you only need to search a probe to get the points for it. This only works if it's another raider that's breached and cleared it, so be aware of the probes that you've already looted. At around 10 minutes left, make sure you check where the extraction is and mark it with a waypoint to make it easy for you to keep an eye on your distance from it. You will want to start moving in towards it, slowly closing the distance as time winds down. You can start to search the outer area of Spaceport, but anecdotally, in my experience, there is a much higher volume of arc couriers than arc probes outside Spaceport's walls, so the value may not be very high in that case. This also could just be my experience and the randomness that came with the games that I played, but I've done this a handful of times and that part's been consistent for me across all of the attempts. At less than 5 minutes left, you need to know how long it will take you to run to the extraction from where you are. By this time in the match, you should be confident in knowing how long a breach will take, how many enemies you'll likely have to fight when you do breach, how often lightning will stop you from breaching, and only go for probes that fit within your window of time remaining. Remember, you can't plan for every contingency, so being able to take calculated risks when that happens can make or break your entire run. As an example, when I went onto this roof, I saw only 2 plumes of black smoke, but there ended up being 3 probes down. I had to calculate the time it would take to run to all 3 on the roof, breach them, dodge the lightning, fight the enemies, and run back to the ladder. As I was running back towards the ladder, a rocketeer appeared out of nowhere, and I didn't have time to use my cloak to walk past him, as I wouldn't make it to the extraction in time if I did. So, without knowing if I could, I jumped off the roof just hoping I'd survive the fall. Luckily I did, and I had the cloak ready to go on the ground because I 100% aggroed that rocketeer, which would have ended up taking me down. Once you're ready to go, hit the extraction button, return to Speranza, collect your loot if you haven't already, and watch as your score soars up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.